9 out of 10. Tech Radar. 9 out of 10. IGN. 94 out of 100. PC Gamer. 9.5 out of 10. PlayStation Universe. 5 out of 5. The Guardian. 5 out of 5. Digital Spy. 2 out of 14. 21 Kiloton. Welcome to Doom Eternal. It's an overpriced puzzle game with guns. And not that much ammunition. Content warning. Some viewers may find the dreadful gameplay footage in this video deeply upsetting. Viewer discretion is advised. Trigger warning. This video contains extensive criticism of this shithouse overpriced game. If opinions different from your own are going to hurt your fifis, then find a teat to suckle on, clutch your teddy bear tight to your own man titties, and go and find some unboxing videos to watch. Consider yourself warned, fanboys. Or fangirls. I'm not sexist. I should start by saying apologies for the short period of radio silence and thank you for the expressions of concern. Obviously, there are some things going on in the world that required my attention. I've had to vacuum seal bags of food, set up a decon area at my back door, refurbish a respirator, and barricade myself into my apartment. I think it's safe to say that I'm having the time of my fucking life. It's just a real shame that so many people had to get sick or die just to make my bad personal lifestyle choices become socially acceptable. I know factually that a lot of people who watch my channel have been affected negatively by what is going on in the world through sickness, economic impact or bereavement. You have my genuine sympathy and my thoughts are with you. But sadly, for the lot of you, I am well. I wasn't kidnapped by Ubisoft and now here we all are and I have to review a video game that nearly everyone is saying is fucking brilliant. And frankly, I don't agree with the general groupthink going on at the moment. Honestly, I don't know if they paid off a lot of reviewers, or if they're just all mental. Perhaps I'm mental. Equal odds on any of those scenarios. So let's ease into this one gently, as a sheep farmer might say. I should at this point qualify that I am playing this on PC with mouse and keyboard. I'm shit at Doom and I'm playing it on easy mode because I'm not seeking anyone's validation or approval. Besides, last time I checked, being good at video games did not make me more attractive to women, nor indeed confer any discounts from the sort of women I have sex with. But before we delve into this shit pile, let's take a quick look at the history of the Doom franchise. A brief history of Doom. Once upon a time, on a desktop computer far, far away, id Software released the iconic and now legendary video game Doom. It was 1993. Most video games were a bit, well, shit. Then suddenly Doom arrives and it is very literally a game changer. It was so far ahead of the fucking curve that it is literally still just about playable today. Keep in mind that this game burst onto the scene in 1993 for fuck's sake. In Doom, you play the part of a soldier, made of about 36 pixels, and you proceed to kill monsters, made of slightly more pixels. Believe it or not, at the time the game was considered so violent, gory and satanic that there were genuine concerns that it would corrupt children and preface the beginning of an era of violent, satanic virtual reality games. Yeah, well, it's 30 years later, we still don't have flying cars, robot servants, or indeed VR technology that won't give you motion sickness and a sweaty head. So there is that. Doom spawned a franchise, and into the world many little Doom babies were born. Some were legitimate sequels. Doom 2, Hell on Earth, Final Doom, Doom 64, Doom 3, Doom RPG, Doom 3, Resurrection of Evil, Doom 2, RPG, Doom 3, BFG Edition, Doom VFR, Doom, and now Doom Eternal. Some were illegitimate or categorised as Doom clones, Rise of the Triad, System Shock, and allegedly Doom influenced LucasArts first-person shooter Dark Forces, according to the Wikipedia entry I read about 7 minutes ago. Credit where credit is due, System Shock was technically a Doom clone, and that game was fucking epic in its own right. But I think it's fair to say that Doom had an incredible impact on first-person shooters, and to some degree, there is definitely a historic pre- and post-Doom era of video game development. The original Doom was ahead of the curve, whereas Doom Eternal is the exact opposite. It's so generic, derivative and frankly safe that it's far behind the curve, and fails to be original and groundbreaking. It's like fucking Boeing getting up in the morning tomorrow and announcing they're going to make a biplane, only their biplane will have a heads-up display, fly-by-wire controls and anti-radar paint. Nothing wrong with that. I like biplanes too, especially flash ones with lots of fancy gadgets. But it's still the wrong fucking century to be banging them out of the factory en masse. And right here is the thing of note. Bethesda used to be famous for great games. Now they are famous pretty much for 3 main things. Fallout 76. Todd Howard and Pete Hines bullshitting their fans, then going whiny boo-hoo in interviews because people are meanies for calling them liars just because they're always lying. And lastly, releasing endless remakes, rehashes and alternate versions of the same damn game. And when I say same damn game, I mean the same damn game with the same damn fucking bugs. Skyrim is now released on every single imaginable system, platform and mobile gadget. The normal version, the special versions, the VR versions, and they are all still as buggy as the first version. Into this maelstrom of recycled IP, Bethesda now releases yet another Doom sequel. Personally, I think they have been inspired by Activision releasing a new Call of Duty every year and thought, hey, why don't we crank out a new iteration of Doom regularly? It was 4 years since the last passable Doom bowel movement. And mark my words, the next Doom title will be along much sooner than that. So what is Doom Eternal exactly? Doom Eternal is the single and multiplayer, vaguely playable, always online asset flip of Dooms of late, only with super light RPG character progression and a little base camp where you can keep your dollies. It's a Doom game using Doom assets, where they try to be a little bit different with the doominess. It is vaguely what it says on the tin. In fact, the only thing shocking about the tin is that it says 50 fucking quid on it. And they want an additional 25 fucking quid for everything in the tin, and another 25 quid for the year 1 DLC pass. I'm going to assume you are way ahead of me here when I boldly assert that it is not worth £100 for the whole game. It's great that it does what it says on the tin, but for £100, even if Emma Appleton jumped out of said tin when I opened it and gave me a fucking blowjob right there, afterwards I would still expect there to be a game in the tin as part of the deal. No offence, Emma, but £100 for a generic video game sequel is, as they say in Latin, taking the fucking piss. In Doom Eternal, you bounce around like a literal physical parkour manifestation of the adder-rolled pubescent mindscape of many of the players playing it. Bounce, shoot, bounce, shoot, bounce, shoot. pound more Adderall, rinse and fucking repeat. There is a PvP multiplayer battle mode, which I did not play. Basically, you get to pick a side and go 3-on-3 as either a slayer or a demon. I'm sure it's positively lovely, but probably worthy of a separate dedicated review, preferably made by someone who actually gives a fuck about Doom PvP, because let's face it, most of us don't. We bought this for the campaign and the single player, and that is both tiresome and frustrating in equal measure. Graphics, sound and functionality. It's definitely not high drain on the old graphics hamster wheel. Running it on a slightly above average system, I could clearly see all of the flying eyeballs and cookie cutter recycled game assets on my screen. The best non-scientific benchmark I can give you is this. In Call of Duty Modern Warfare, on warm days, I hear my fans kick into a higher level. With Doom Eternal, I didn't even bother updating my drivers when I started playing it because I couldn't be fucked, and it still ran like a peach. The graphics is executed with a level of efficiency and economy so that they run like a greased cat, but still manage to look very visually busy and detailed enough. In fact, the visual eye candy that your face is bombarded with is impressive enough that someone standing behind you watching you play this in an internet cafe could easily be tricked into thinking you were enjoying the experience. You know, it looks like the other recent Doom game basically. Well, what does anyone expect? It's made on the cheap, with the exact same palette of developer assets, and probably the same fucking developers. I thought the sound effects were very pleasant. Like someone grabbed a bag of guns, a baseball bat, a claw hammer and a microphone and went down to their local cooperative coffee shop, turned around the close sign and spent a few days brutally slaughtering the hipsters whilst recording every little detail of the carnage. And yes, that visual imagery would be more in keeping with the heritage of Doom. Certainly more in keeping with tradition than this puzzle box platformer. The key rebinding was very straightforward and unproblematic, which is frankly quite rare these days, in these days of cheap console ports. But let's keep this in perspective. This is a game with no crouch or reload. It's not exactly a tactical shooter. I just about managed to find all 4 of the important keys and rebind them. Move forward, jump, shoot and melee. Fuck, you could probably rebind the controls onto a tracker ball and a giant red buzzer without significantly impeding the quality of the experience. So what about the NPCs? There were some. There were the big floaty around things, the spider things, the piss weak things and those dicks that keep running at you. Apparently they are each susceptible to different types of weapon attacks. If I had actually had any fucks to give about learning the game, I possibly could have figured out how this mechanic works, but thankfully I didn't. I just pretty much worked my way down through the weapons in turn, running out of ammo sequentially, and then occasionally chainsawing or glory killing some arse-tard for the resupply drops. You know, because that is the game loop, basically. Run out of ammo, melee someone, curse under your breath, rinse and repeat until either the game finishes or you run out of sedatives. Well, let's talk about the fuckery. Well, it's too fucking expensive. Seriously, £100 for the whole game with all the glass beads and woolen blankets included. Fuck that, it's not worth the trade. That's the same price as a Division 2 full edition. And at least with that game you get the Community Management Team's State of the Game DLC expansion, where a variety of bullshitting corporate comedy sock puppets get up in front of the cameras every week to blow bubbles and improvise why the game is still fucked and unfinished, like some funny yet vaguely creepy corporate Punch and fucking Judy show. I don't think I can touch on fuckery without at least alluding to the fact that my gut is telling me that Bethesda clearly, how can I put this? Bethesda has clearly motivated a lot of content creators to give this game positive reviews. Best FPS game ever made? Fuck off. I doubt this will end up being the best FPS game this year. Oh yeah, it probably will, because every major publisher is allocated at least one mandatory prize at the Video Game Awards, which is only fair really, because they are paying for them. And I mean that literally. Seriously, even Ubisoft walked away with 4 nominations last year, and their games in 2019 were a bucket of putrid fuck. On a serious note though, the mainstream reviews of this game are vastly overrating Doom Eternal. I will let the viewer decide whether that is caused by advertising budget blackmail, bribing YouTube reviewers, fear of pissing off fanboys, populism, basic low standards, or just basic poor taste. And in case you can't figure it out, it's mostly the first 3 with a fair bit of the last 3 thrown in too. When evaluating a video game, I always like to ask, for what problem is that the solution? Nobody really needed this game. Nobody was protesting outside of E3 last year screaming, "We demand a mediocre generic first-person sci-fi shooter where you bounce around a lot in the air, jumping from platform to platform, shooting generic bad guys with generic weapons." The generic boingo boingo prepubescent kaleidoscopic shit shooter is an industry staple these days. It's like non-brand medium sliced bread or off-brand slightly too sugary peanut butter. Sure, it makes up the majority of our collective diets, but it's not what you would choose to eat if there was a nicer option. Especially not when this white bread game is, let's face it, a vastly inferior sequel to a once classic game. They have tried to spam it up a bit and rebrand it a little so they look like they earned their developer wages. There were the usual additional odd features that we are seeing a lot of these days in what should be traditional linear shooters. Fast travel points, allusions to semi-open world, which is really just about going back later and snaffling collectibles. Oh, collectible dollies, because the Slayer likes his dollies for floofs. Cosmetics, RPG, ultralight character progression, weapon upgrades, weekly fucking challenges. Some of this is aligned with this modern idea of making every single fucking game slightly semi-ish, openish world-ish with RPG-ish light character progression with all that collectible shite. But weekly challenges just smacks of desperate always online methodology bullshit. A desperate plea to make a linear single-player game infinitely replayable, which is an unlikely prospect at best unless the game is spectacular the first time around. I mean, they put those weekly challenges in Wolfenstein Youngblood, and that worked out so well. 86 people playing as we speak. Winning! There was an interesting rock, paper, scissors dynamic with both damage, output and reward input. If I ever manage to stumble across enough fucks to get emotionally invested in this game, I might well learn how that works and explain it to you. But I won't, and I suspect you knew I was lying when I said that. I doubt I'll even manage to finish this game. It's that unsatisfying. There is, however, not that much technically wrong with Doom Eternal, but that doesn't make it great. It's an averagely well-made asset flip from people with lots of experience making Doom games, with lots of developer assets from Doom games, following the exact winning formula of Doom games. So no, it's not shit, but what problem does it solve? The winning formula has got old, and collectible cuddle toys and parkour is not going to change that. If I took photos of the Sistine Chapel, photoshopped them all around into a new layout and painted them with bright modern new paints on the ceiling of a different chapel, it would technically be as good as the Sistine Chapel. What does it actually achieve? No one's going to go and visit that fucking place. The combat basically seems to be driving the player to get as close as possible to the enemies, soften them up, then punch them. That classic Black Ops technique of equipping your soldiers with a huge array of the highest tech ranged weapons imaginable, but then ordering them to only dispatch their wounded enemies with a fucking punch and a kisser. That makes sense, right? Indeed it doesn't, but that is the core gunplay mechanic. Weaken the enemy, then quickly get up in their grill and stitch one on the fucker. only in the movies, right? Personally, I would be happy to complete the entire fucking game with a sniper rifle, but if you cleared each level at range, the player might suddenly notice the fundamental lack of depth to the story and level design. Because here is the story and level design. You get put in a level, you solve a puzzle, you kill everything. Some bad dude grumbles at you for giving him a boo-boo. There is no fucking story. Unless of course you consider the writing on the back of a bottle of bleach as constituting a story. In fairness, if you sit on the shitter reading the label on a bottle of bleach and when you're finished you say, "Oh wow, that was a gripping story," then, I think you are probably going to love the narrative in Doom Eternal. Because it will be the best story you've heard all week. But for most humans, they probably won't even notice the game has a story. There were lots of integrated puzzle-style things that you had to complete to navigate through levels and get past obstructions. They pissed me off. The platforming sections of the game, frankly, were at times annoying and eventually became absolutely fucking insanely annoying as all fucking fuck. Here is a quick masterclass in first-person shooter level design, where the player power fantasy is being a one-man bollock-hard death machine. If you are really determined to absolutely fuck that up with 100% clarity, then introduce platform puzzles where the player will die 10 to 20 times in a fucking row trying to jump like fucking Mario from one dickless platform to another. What the actual fucking shitlord are they thinking? Hey players, do you want to play the role of a deadly fuck-hard murder machine with a death metal soundtrack and invisible backpack stuffed with an arsenal of guns? Or just maybe you hide the guns in your arse? You want that? You want to feel the bloodlust? Okay then, we'll just spend 15 minutes mantling onto these annoying platforms, dying every 6 seconds until eventually you get lucky, and then maybe, just fucking maybe, we will give you 3 rounds of shotgun ammunition and something to shoot at. You little bitch. Some of the platforming felt more like hazing or trolling. It did not fit this game. It was diametrically opposed to the game's narrative. Okay, maybe not narrative, let's say genre or maybe game category. But you get my point. I'm supposed to be the Doom guy. Why are you treating me like fucking Mario in Donkey Kong? I can see that they were trying to introduce some supposed new elements, but it played more like a college wedgie session rather than a legitimate challenge. Especially when you can't see around the corner and you have to jump blind and hope that in that fraction of a second you can see where you need to jump for, swing off and in which direction to go for, and you started the whole procedure in the correct way to put you in reach in the first place. You're gonna die a lot by trial and error. They are practically setting you up to fail and demanding trial and error, killing off the player multiple times, and it simply does not fit this game. But putting aside the theorising and methodology, it basically just gets annoying. And don't even get me started about the multiple mantling puzzles where if you fuck up the last bit you have to go right around and do the whole fucking thing again from the beginning. This is some real old school boring fuck game design. I paid for a shooter. If I wanted to play a platformer, I would have bought George of the Jungle and the Search for the Secret, saved myself £97.50 and had a lot more fun in the process. Okay, maybe that's overstating the case. It's funny, but it was only after a particularly frustrating 1-hour session, almost exclusively dominated by my horrific failure at the mantling and jumping puzzles, that it hit me. It's fucking Portal. No, seriously, the penny dropped. This game is inspired by the 2007 cult classic game Portal. Once I appreciated that, I breathed in and let out a huge sigh of relief. Then I spat at the screen and went straight back to raging and screaming at the game. It's fucking Portal! Now sure, perhaps I'm having a hard time with this game because, as you can see from the footage, I am tragically bad at this kind of mechanic. But I would retort, being shit at it is not my problem. If I bought Portal, it would be my problem. But if I buy Doom, fucking Eternal, how can it be my fault because I'm bad at fucking Portal? This game is having an identity crisis. It's trying to change into something that it's not, and failing at both. What it is, and what it is trying to be. It's a jock, trying to dress up like an emo to impress a girl. There is no way that dickhead can just put on a bit of black eyeliner and get an undercut and look like the real article. Doom Eternal is like a jock trying to look like an emo. The in-game weaponry was basically there. I wasn't really feeling the weapon porn at all. In fact, it was less weapon porn and more like the underwear section of your nan's catalogue. For every picture of a pretty lady in slightly retro saucy polyester fake laced little numbers, there were usually 5 to 6 variants of brown reinforced support pants. The guns just didn't do it for me. Sure, we had the shotgun, I guess, or should I say shotgun / grenade launcher / auto shotty. And therein was a problem for me. With all the different weapons, each with mods that entirely changed or transformed their functionality, and shoulder-mounted this and shoulder-mounted cunting tat, it quickly all just became one giant blur of overlapping weapon subtypes where nothing really stood out as a favourite. I kept finding myself defaulting to using the shotgun just out of a sense of misplaced familiarity, and that fucker seemed to constantly run out of ammo. And therein is the illuminating point. For many people, including myself, their favourite weapon was the retro homage double barrel, which is only there as a nod to the original game. If your game franchise is a quarter of a fucking century old with more sequels and spin-offs than Star Trek, it is a fairly tragic indictment that the most popular gun is one of the first guns you pick up from your first ever game. I'm sorry, but if you can't do better in 27 years, then please, just fucking stop. The paucity of the ammo leads me to another annoyance. In order to force the player into a singular playstyle, they seem to ration the ammo severely. I guess the logic is this: they want the players to rock, paper, scissor this shit whilst playing fairly close for the glory hole kills, for the sake of visuals, action, pace and... I don't fucking know what they're thinking. They just decided for reasons. In order to achieve this, they seem to be playing this card hand. Limit ammo for each weapon, give each mods, give lots of pachinko ammo wins for close-up kills, and force the player to drive into the opponents, constantly switching between weapons because frankly you run out of cunting ammo. Let's just say the tactics adopt the approach of the stick, and they definitely are not using the carrot to encourage you to play their way. I might be a tragic and pity-worthy shot in this game, but holy shitballs on a skewer, playing on the easiest setting and only missing 2/3 of the time, I shouldn't be constantly running all my guns dry and having to resort to chainsaws and running away skills to find ammo. Remember, this is on the easiest level. Let's repeat that. I might be shit at this game, but I'm not that shit. I can solo the whole of the Division 2 with a pistol. I should at least be able to play this on the most easiest difficulty level without being short on ammo nearly all of the time. The entire game drags you by the scruff and says, you must play the game our way or we will kick you and you won't get any more dog food for a week. In fact, maybe this is my main generic cluster of issues with this pig shit show of a game. It doesn't use a carrot, it uses a fucking stick. It uses a stick to make you play a certain specific way, and that way is usually not how I would want to play this game. It makes you do jumping and parkour puzzles. It makes you switch weapons for reasons. It makes you constantly lick the grill of the enemy for ammo resupply. You paid for Doom, an FPS game, but Bethesda rocks up and gives you Portal fucking 3, Rise of the Parkour Doom Acrobat, and makes you flakjack around like some unlucky Parisian parkour cunt who has been thrown through the gates of hell with a truckload of weapons, 3 fucking bullets for each one, and a chainsaw that makes ammunition fall out of people's heads apparently, and consumes a 5-gallon jerry can of petrol just to saw through one face in 5 seconds, despite it being set in the future. I can get a better fucking chainsaw than that right now from Amazon, and it's 2020. Perhaps in the next tiresome Doom sequel, they can give him a battery-powered chainsaw. I heard they're all the rage these days. See, even he likes it, and he can't do parkour for shit. There was a big lean into collectibles in Doom Eternal, and they give you a little man cave where you can look at your in-game teddy bears and all that nonsense. It was quite cute, I guess. It didn't really get me stiff, but I suppose it might be fun for people stoned out of their fucking chops, or for people who are both interested in violence and collectible children's toys. Now that is not a healthy psychological profile.
Hello, Bob. Want to come over for dinner? Are you sick?
The in-game Wikipedia was a trifle shite. I liked the idea of a codex, but as soon as I actually needed to look something up, I realised it wasn't ordered alphabetically. Basic oversight, really. There is this shit called the alphabet, and I assumed that even in the future all the letters were supposed to go in a particular order. Who would have thunk it? In its defence, I did kind of see the peak experience of this game. I experienced it easily, by accident, because I was playing it on baby steps difficulty, but I'm sure this is the point for the skilled players too. The game generates these strings of connected gorgasms. It's a bit like an FPS version of Shadows of Mordor, when it just flows together naturally into a cinematic vision of totally balletic bloodlust, which emerges synergistically from all of the players' button mashing. Well, from the player's skill in some cases, but with me, it's literally just button mashing. And potluck. I'll be completely honest, whilst I really loved the early Doom and Quake games, I feel that the glory days of the Doom franchise is well behind them now. These days, it all just feels a bit like the Alien vs Predator era of the Alien franchise. I've never seen an Alien movie that I hated, but I know the first 2 are classics. The third was okay, the fourth was a bit lol, and then it all just slides down the side of a hill in one blur. It probably doesn't help that I'm not particularly good at this kind of shooter, and frankly, don't feel engaged enough with the game to really develop my skills. Playing this game makes me feel a bit like one of those geezers in the Cold Steel commercials. You know, full of good intentions, with a hint that once they knew what they were doing, but have long since lost the urge to practice and maintain their skills. Give me a decent game, and I become compelled to learn new strategies and techniques. Give me this kind of generic crap, and I literally just think, what's the point? This game is generic and uninspired. There is nothing horrifically wrong with it. It's just not great. The main things to complain about in Doom Eternal is the price tag and the very justification for making it. Oh yeah, money. Bethesda wanted to make some more money. That explains everything. Why they bothered slightly and why they're overcharging for this. In the final analysis, I think Doom Eternal became discombobulated in the following way. I reckon they had a meeting and decided that if they were going to perpetually crank out a new Doom sequel with a semi-Call of Duty regularity, they needed to keep refreshing the brand. By refreshing, obviously, I mean add enough changes so that people won't accuse it of being a lazy arse fuck asset flip, which, let's face it, it damn well is. They realised that with every iteration they needed to add something new that changed the flavour of the game, so they grabbed some developers who worked on Prey and told them to spam it up a bit and introduce more verticality and puzzle-based levels. Then they realised that Chad in level design used to work on Portal 2, so they roped him in and put the fella in charge of the team. Then they grabbed some Activision Blizzard refugees and got them to work on the weapon, gear and character progression. I bet they sat them down and said, we don't give a fuck what you actually do, just make it really complicated and convoluted so players have to search all over the map finding gonks to upgrade stuff. This game is different for difference's sake, and it all comes at the expense of the core gameplay. It's a shooter, where you never have enough ammo. It's FPS, where you spend the majority of your time trying to solve platform puzzles. It's a violent video game, where you spend most of your time fucking around trying to find gonks. It's an epic combat franchise that rations your bullets and health in a way that forces you to play the game their way instead of your way. Doom Eternal is a game built by committee and succeeds in many peripheral areas, but fails at its core objective. If you bought this game because you wanted violence, then be warned. You might just fire up the game to play for a couple of hours and find most of that time wasted trying to work out how to get up on a platform to unlock the next part of the map, or just unlock a fucking teddy bear for your in-game collection of fluffies. If you are a mind-controlled fanboy or you just love everything about this franchise, nobody can change your mind. It's like trying to argue with someone about whether Christmas is a nice time of year or whether the colour blue is a good or a bad colour. There is no point. If you are not a fan of the franchise, then you don't need my advice because you can probably see this game for what it is. A highly overpriced sequel that will provide a Doom fix if you are an addict. This game is fluff. It's as trite as the collectible teddy bears it throws at you and makes you store in your man-child cave back at base. The big problem with Doom in my mind is this: Doom Mythos was great because it took you on a journey which dragged the player down this increasingly fucked up and dark rabbit hole. You essentially descended into hell. It was an odyssey where you were plunged into Dante's Inferno. The game mechanics were great, the story was great, the game was great, but how many times can you make sequels which are essentially the same fucking journey into practically the same fucking abyss? How many times can you remake The Wizard of fucking Oz, where you start with a tornado and end up meeting a shitting wizard? There is nothing significantly wrong with this game, apart from the price of course. The issue is encapsulated by this one comment I whispered under my breath when I first started playing Doom Eternal. As I grabbed my shotty and headed out into this oh so familiar game world, I found myself unconsciously saying out loud, "Here we go again." That's when I realised this game started to become reminiscent of the sci-fi convention in Galaxy Quest. And we are the cunts who keep going up to Dr. Lazarus and making him reluctantly roll out the same tired old line of, "By Grabthor's hammer, by the sons of Warvan, you shall be avenged."
By Grabthor's hammer, by the sons of Warvan, I shall avenge you. By Grabthor's hammer. Next.
Oh yeah, and just in case I didn't hammer this point home enough earlier, the fucking mantling and jumping Donkey Cunting Kong puzzle sections are possibly one of the most annoying things I have ever experienced in a shooter. I bought this game in the vaguest and most vain hope I would not be troubled with thinking and puzzles and platforming. I just wanted to kill, kill, kill. Sadly, however, the infuriating platformer puzzles were so mind-bendingly boring and frustrating that there were times that I literally was coming close to real-life blood fury. How would they like it if they bought a chess simulator or a resource management game and I slapped down sections where you couldn't advance without completing first-person shooter sections? I reckon they would find it ridiculous. Just like I found this game's obsession with shitty puzzles ridiculous. This game will be popular with children that have never been in a real fight, adults that do air guitar at wedding receptions, gamers who don't mind pissing away £100 on a budget sequel game, school shooters. Actually, school shooters will probably get frustrated with this game because there is too much platforming and puzzles and not enough balls out shooting and ammo. So yeah, welcome to Doom Eternal, a game that spends so much time fucking around with puzzles it won't satisfy a school shooter's bloodlust. Doom Eternal is worth £16 tops, wait until it's on discount, and then you might have a bargain if you like platforming. But for now, good luck and happy hunting.